Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia in the world. Nearly 50 million people worldwide have it, and every 66 seconds, someone in the United States is diagnosed with it. It's been called the epidemic of our century, but even after decades of research, finding a way to prevent this disease has been a puzzle that has eluded the medical community. Now, we may be closer than ever to solving it.
I personally have a lot of hope that we will see the first survivors of Alzheimer's disease in our lifetime. I'm Nilufer Ertekin-Taner. I'm a neurologist and I'm a neuroscientist focused on Alzheimer's disease and related dementias.
Alzheimer's disease is a progressive condition, typically starting in the part of the brain associated with memory. It then spreads, causing trouble with memory, cognitive ability, and eventually loss of bodily functions. It's a relentlessly progressive condition that leads to death by or with the disease. Age is the most common risk factor for Alzheimer's. In fact, about a third of individuals ages 85 or above have it. And while the exact cause of the onset of the disease is not known, what is known is that it is characterized by a buildup of toxic proteins in the brain.
There are two main hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease in the brain. One of them is amyloid beta, which builds up in plaques outside of neurons. And the other one is tau, which is a fibrillar protein which builds up inside of neurons. Both of these proteins are toxic, and ultimately they lead to dysfunction and death of neurons.
As these proteins accumulate and neurons start to die, the brain's immune system kicks into gear.
The immune cells of the brain, called microglia, try to get rid of this toxic protein substances, and they also try to get rid of the dead neurons.
Ultimately, this immune response leads to chronic inflammation of the brain. Over a longer period of time, as the disease progresses and neural cell death continues, the affected brain regions begin to shrink. And that's about when symptoms start to show.
Although it starts typically in areas that affect our memory, ultimately it starts affecting areas that control our movements, that control our swallowing and our breathing. And in the terminal stages of this condition, our patients with Alzheimer's disease lose their ability to move and they become bedbound. And at the end, our patients unfortunately succumb to pneumonia, malnutrition, generalized sepsis of the body, and this is all because of Alzheimer's disease and what it does in the brain.
And while all this sounds dire, decades of studies on patients show that there may be a window of opportunity to prevent the condition advancing before you would see any symptoms.
We know that 10 or 20 years before the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease can be observed, there are changes in the brain. We know this from biomarker studies looking at levels of abnormal proteins in the spinal fluid, in the brain, or in blood. So biomarkers are quantifiable measures that can help us detect disease or an aspect of the disease. So for example, we can think of glucose levels, blood glucose levels, as being a biomarker for diabetes. We can think about blood pressure measurements as being a biomarker for high blood pressure. In the same vein, we have developed and continue to develop biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease.
And while these biomarkers are important to follow the disease's progression, the research is still ongoing. Right now, knowing a patient's risk factors can help them make choices to slow the onset of Alzheimer's.
Those risk factors that are bad for your heart are generally bad for your brain. So diabetes, hypertension, smoking, and obesity are risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. On the flip side, what we recommend to our patients and even the general public is that they stay engaged, both cognitively, physically, and socially.
That can be anything from exercise to maintaining a strong social network. The takeaway seems to be stay active.
We are also at an amazing time in research and clinical studies. We are able to combine clinical information with very complex genetic and other molecular information. And this helps us try and identify the very complex molecular perturbations that can lead to this condition.